Season 5 of the How We Can Heal podcast is sponsored by Simple Practice. Simple Practice is the leading practice management software for behavioral health professionals, helping you simplify everything from admin work to clinical care. If you're a counselor, therapist, psychiatrist, or allied health professional in private or group practice, their easy-to-use online system can help you simplify your business so you can focus your energy on caring for clients. About 7 years ago, I made the switch from logging everything on paper, I know, so old school, to their online practice management software, and I'm telling you, I will never go back. Everything is organized now, and it's easy to schedule, share files, and provide super bills to clients. I only wish I'd made the change sooner. If you're just starting out or want to simplify the business side of your clinical work, I highly recommend Simple Practice. Right now, they're offering a 7-day free trial with 70% off your first 4 months. Go to simplepractice.com/howwecanheal or use the link in my show notes to take advantage of this offer today. If you love this podcast, I bet you would love the Yoga for Trauma online training program. This 8-week certification is for anyone who wants to learn how yoga philosophy and practice can help respond to the impact trauma has on our bodies and brains. When you join the program, you'll learn the theory and best practices for incorporating somatic skills into your healing work. Students often come into the program knowing that yoga can be helpful for stress management, but unsure about how to apply the practice to specific aspects of trauma recovery. This program breaks it all down and leaves you feeling clear about your choices as you support folks navigating post-traumatic stress, whether you're managing a program, working one-on-one with clients, or leading therapeutic groups. Of course, the experience is good for you too. With 8 modules and 8 yoga classes, you'll get a taste of how it feels to practice yoga in a resource-building, trauma-responsive manner. Head on over to howwecanheal.com/Y4T, that's the letter Y, the number 4, and the letter T, to apply to join the program today. Mention the podcast in your application for a special bonus. One more time, nice and slow. The website is howwecanheal.com/Y4T. Our next cohort kicks off June 9th. If you're feeling called to join us, I would love to welcome you and support you through the program. Welcome back to the How We Can Heal podcast. Today, our guest is Anna Ratnathicam Diab. Anna and I met as high school students visiting the UCLA campus, and we're friends throughout our college years together there. Today, we talk about her daughter, Carolina Diab, who passed away in 2019. Anna shares her experiences as a parent, the story of the day Carolina passed. Heads up, this is very appropriately an emotional story. And how Anna's found healing after the trauma of losing her daughter. Anna shares about the many ways connection has been helpful in the wake of such a profound loss. She shares her efforts to stay open to a sense of spiritual connection, her dedication to her sons having as magical a life as Carolina did, and she identifies the supports that helped her navigate the whirlwind of emotions that come with this kind of loss. This episode is in honor of Carolina, of my brother Matt, who we talk about a bit here too, and of anyone you've loved who you can't call or curl up next to anymore. It's also an offering to anyone who's lost a child, a trauma so visceral that we don't often talk about it in the open in the way we do here today. I hope this conversation gives you comfort, courage, and especially if you've lost a child yourself, the knowledge that while your experience is, of course, unique, you're not alone in your grief. I hope you'll join me today in honoring those we've loved and lost, and in giving the most massive hug to my dear friend and our guest here today, Anna Diab. I was thinking when kind of leading up to this about when we met, right?
I thought about that this morning on my run, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, I really did.
The blue super shuttle, right?
The super shuttle. Yeah.
On the way from LAX
Yes.
to Westwood to go check out UCLA. I was trying to remember what time of year that was. It must have been like spring because you've already been accepted, but
If
there's
we would have
students in
accepted it, it
school.
must have.
Yeah.
Yeah, springtime.
We were what, 17?
I would have still been 17,
Oh my goodness, like more than half a lifetime ago.
literally. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you remember from that day, that weekend we met?
I don't remember much. I know you and I tried to go to a fraternity party,
Of course we did. I don't remember that.
but I don't actually remember anything UCLA related that we did or accomplished. And I don't even know if we got into a party, but I know we tried.
That's so funny. I don't remember that. I just remember meeting you in the super shuttle and being like, oh, okay, cool. Someone else from my hometown. She seems pretty cool. She wants to go here too. And then fast forward, you ended up becoming really close with Marietta, one of my roommates. So many fun stories that won't make it onto this podcast that will stay forever in the realm of no social media and no
Yeah,
video evidence.
so much better.
But I am really grateful that we met and that we know each other. And we're here today to talk about like the not so fun things, not so much the frat parties, but more the hardest things we go through in life. You know, when I was at UCLA, my older brother passed away. I was 22, he was 25. And then in 2019, December, you lost your daughter on a trip with your family, and that was really sudden. And so now we have this connection that like you never want to have with anyone, but I
Right.
think is also really powerful and really helpful when those things do happen to find those people who have been through something similar. It's never going to be the same, but who can just kind of grasp like, oh, I have a taste for where you are right now, right? So I'm curious for you, just to back up a little. I want to say Carolina's name, Carolina, and I want to just sort of almost invite her into the space. You and I talk about being like you're a science major and we're like very logical. And then there's this spiritual element that comes with loss at times. And sometimes it can be hard to lean into that. But I was doing yoga before this, as I do. And I was thinking about her and I was thinking about how sometimes when I'm doing therapy sessions, I really feel someone with us. Like we're talking about someone who's passed and I really feel them. And so I just wanted to like open the door to that, to like having her here with us. Like my producer sometimes comes on, she's not here today, but she'll be in the background on the Zoom. You don't see her face and you don't hear
Yeah.
her voice, but she's just sort of there. You know, while we're at it, we can invite Matt too, we can invite whoever. But just to like keep that presence with us and that presence alive. Does that work for you?
It does. And this is where you've helped me. You know, I struggle with how do I connect or how do I feel her presence, and that I still have a lot of work to do. So I appreciate you saying that. And it encourages me to be a little more open to that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to hear your story, Carolina's story. How did she come to be in your world? Did you always want a family? How did you feel about having a daughter? I know as a podcast host, I'm not supposed to ask you 12 questions at the same time, but just let us know what was that? How did she come into your life?
I knew I always, like you, I have two brothers. So growing up, having siblings was just my norm. And so I knew I wanted to have a family. And my husband felt the same when we got married. He also came from three kids growing up together. And so it was just kind of assumed that that's what we would do. But it certainly was, you know, that moment you see that positive pregnancy test, it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yes.
Maybe I wasn't quite ready. You know, there's a fear that sets in. I was excited. I'm one of those miserable pregnant people. I was sick all the time. So I wasn't excited really,
Yeah.
but like the idea was exciting.
What do you remember about her birth, her early years?
Her birth was easy, thank goodness. I felt like I'd paid my dues pregnant. And the early years were, I mean, you know, it changes your whole world, obviously.
Yeah.
And I found it rather isolating. I was young among my friends to have kids. I was 28.
Mhm.
And, you know, I'm used to just working and that's what I have to talk about. And I have friends who have similar things to talk about. And suddenly all I had to talk about was how I went to Target that day.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is
so
a
I can't
huge
say that
accomplishment, by the way.
it is, but when you say it out loud, it's like, oh,
Right. People are like,
um,
okay, if they're not in that world.
right. So I mean, I look back and of course I would do it all again, but those were hard early years.
Yeah.
Caroline was easy enough, but I'm not a baby mom. I
Yeah.
needed her to grow up a little bit, and then I was better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was she like? What personality did you see emerging? What were some of the fun moments with her as she started to get older?
It's always funny, kind of silly,
Hmm.
happy. I mean, I'm sure I thought she was difficult at the time, but no, the minute my son was born, she took him under her wing and she was the boss, and he looked up to her and she exploited that to the best of her abilities, and she bounced around. She wanted to do what her friends were doing.
What are some of the things that have become signs of her to you?
Some of them are, I don't think generic's the right word, but things like rainbows and bright colors, which are not obviously unique just to her, but she was in a phase where she was colors and patterns. My husband used to say she dresses pattern on pattern on pattern. When I see, especially if I see another kid around the same age dressed like that, it makes me kind of chuckle to myself, remembering that, that parent probably looked at their child and said,
Here we go.
here we go today.
Yeah.
Um, Candy, everyone seems to associate her with sweets and candy. She loved it, was proud of her obsession, flaunted it. I have these TikTok videos of her now in her account, and so many of them are her like sneaking candy around the house or hiding wrappers, and it's funny.
Did you ever find those rappers?
Yes, yes. When she was live, yes, I found stashes of them, and then even that last maybe up to a year after she died, I found wrappers here and there, and it was funny.
Oh, wow. That must have been funny, but also a little bit hard, like a little moment of connection to her.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
I ask these questions because I know a big part of you continuing to talk about what you went through, which is obviously like one of the most difficult things anyone can go through, is like keeping her spirit alive and keeping her
Mhm.
with us and remembering some of those things that might seem funny or just daily, daily things, eating candy, wearing bright colors. For both of us, we experienced a loss that happened really quickly.
Mhm.
And I know you were on a trip in Uganda. And honestly, like I've just never, I think I learned about what happened from
Mhm.
your Facebook post, which said something to the effect of, this is never supposed to happen, or it was never supposed to be this way,
Mhm.
which I can totally relate to. Do you want to tell the story of what happened when you lost her, or does that feel like, oh, I've gone through that so many times, or it might be too painful, or
No, I can talk about it. I think it's hard and emotional, but I always feel a catharsis to it after. Like, it's not her only story, but it's still her story,
yeah.
and it's part of it.
I mean, I'd love to hear it just as your friend if you want to share.
Yeah, we'd probably been in Uganda 4 days, I think, at that point. Everyone was fine. You've traveled a lot. Like, we were jet lagged and probably dehydrated, and we celebrated. She had the best last day. We didn't know that at the time, but they threw a birthday party for her at the lodge that evening. And the next day, we got on a small flight to go more remote.
Hmm.
And she was complaining of a headache, and we were trying to pack up. And I'm sure I was snippy, like, just drink some water. She wouldn't drink water, but it was nothing crazy. We got
Yeah.
on the flight and we got to the lodge. Julian, my middle, had eaten something funky that didn't agree with him. So he wanted to lie down, and she said she did too. And we were eating lunch. My dad and my brother and his girlfriend were there, and my youngest was there. And my husband came back and said, she's throwing up. She's asking for you. And
Oh,
so I was kind of like, okay. I walked back to our room at this lodge, and she was sick on the bed. And she looked at me and she said, Mama, I don't want to die. And, as a parent, I said, of course you're not.
yeah.
Let's move over to the other bed. We'll get you cleaned up. You'll be fine. And she looked at Julian and said, Julian, I love you. And she was unconscious probably 10 minutes later.
Wow.
And so we got the camp nurse was there. Camp arranged for a ride to the hospital. They said, we're going to go to the farther one. It's better. And we spent the next 14 hours there. She never regained consciousness.
Oh,
But you don't think of the worst. You can't imagine. It was like, it's going to be fine.
yeah.
But it was just a lot with Medivac, and we had approval to go to Nairobi with her. And I think we just thought and hoped, like, okay, that's going to happen. We're going to go to a bigger hospital and it's going to be fine. My brother's girlfriend, Liz, stayed back at the camp with the boys. It was the middle of the night. And my dad and brother were trying to work with the Medivac and going back and forth with the drivers. Suddenly, I felt her heart rate in her chest, and it was not normal. I yelled for the doctor, and the next 2 hours were chest compressions and intubation and all the things that you don't ever want to see. And after a while, it became clear that it wasn't going to, she wasn't going to make it. There were two doctors, and I said, is anything going to change? And she said, how long till your brother and dad get here? And I said, probably 20 minutes. They were in the car and we were texting, and she said, we can keep going till then. And I was just like, if this is it, like, if it's not going to change, just stop pressing on her. And she said, are you sure? And I said, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ugh. It's just the most painful experience. And I mean, my mind goes to worst case scenario all the time with this adult. Oh my God, is she okay? Oh my God, is this going to happen? To fix this and make sure she's okay.
Yeah.
And at the same time, though, you're describing this like, no, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Like we have to, right?
You have to.
Because there's no other option. Like the only option is get you to the next care and get you better and get you better.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a moment there of acceptance or surrender for you to say, if it's not going to change, just let her be. What do you have a sense of what happened for you in that moment, or what led you to that choice?
I knew Gibran had already realized it. I was hanging on so hard
Yeah.
that I couldn't see it. You know, when you kind of balance out with a partner in any situation, one person's struggling, the other kind of buoys the opposite direction just to keep it even. And I was so firm that it's okay, even though no, I mean, all the signs around me showed that it wasn't, but my brain couldn't even go there.
Yeah.
Just the way that doctor looked at me and said, it won't make a difference. I had to let her be. It's so intense to watch chest compressions, and it was a lot. So I just said, please stop pressing on her.
I think of how we respond emotionally in those moments. I feel like I would just break. And what do I mean by that? Like your heart breaks, your body, your everything breaks in half, or you're like crying, or like, did you hug Gibran? Did you collapse on the floor? Do you remember even after you realized like this might be it? This is it?
Yeah. I don't think we hugged. If we did, it was not right away.
Yeah.
I remember I texted my brother and my dad because they were going to walk into it being done, just so they knew.
Yeah.
And then I crawled into the bed with her and I yelled for a blanket, and I sobbed, and I called a handful of people that for me, I don't know, I had to like scream it out there.
Yeah.
And then I remember they said I had to get out of the room. They had to prep her for whatever they do.
Yeah.
And it was a remote hospital. And so when you walk outside the door of the room, you walk to the outside.
Yeah.
That was the pediatric wing. And it was dark. It was 3 a.m.
Jeez.
And there was like a dirt hill, and there were all these eyes in the dark. And it was all the women from the nearby. I'm sure word spread quickly that an American child was there. And they probably heard, I'm sure they heard everything those last couple hours. And they were all sniffling. And one of them moved over. There was one bench, and for me to sit there. And it was, in hindsight, it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did collapse on the dirt at one point. I remember I just couldn't hold myself up.
Yeah.
I cried. I probably made really strange crying sounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the people there were sad with you, were supportive of you, were present, were witnessing what was happening.
Yeah.
And were offering some sense of care, or what they could.
They didn't speak English. We didn't speak.
Yeah.
But they just sat there for the next, it was probably 2 or 3 hours before an ambulance got there to take her.
Yeah.
And they followed us to the ambulance. And I remember when they shut the door and I turned around and they all put their right hand up. These women, it was the most striking human thing maybe
Yeah.
I've ever seen.
Wow. How did that impact you in the moment emotionally? Did you feel like it helped or supported you at all?
I felt supported.
Yeah.
I was swirling in my mind. I noted it. I don't think I could take it in as much as I could after, when I realized how remarkable it was that they were there in
Yeah.
the middle of the night and they didn't know us, but they were feeling for us. Yeah, it's quite meaningful to me now.
What has sustained you in facing this loss? You mentioned calling people right away, just needing to shout out what was happening. Those first few minutes, hours, days, there's so much shock.
Mhm.
What helped you then, and what's helped in the years that have passed since then?
It's probably the same, just in a different way. Just people showing up, showing us that they were thinking about Carolina. It wasn't about, not even the boys yet and Javon and myself. It was just, think of her.
Hmm.
Just the logistics of bringing someone back internationally is daunting,
Yeah.
and then piled on with why you're doing it. It was a lot. That part's blurry, but a Facebook page was put up right away, and I spent, the dark hours, sleepless hours of the night reading these messages, and some people I knew and some people I didn't at all, and they were thinking of Carolina, and that helped so much.
Yeah.
And since then, of course, it's less intense, right? Anytime after someone passes as time marches on, but people like you who just remind me that she's not forgotten. I think what I panicked with, especially soon after she died, was that what if she's forgotten? What if people don't remember after this, after the funeral is over, after the first year is over? But they haven't. People continue to remind me, and that's, for me, a really big bit of peace.
I know. I was even thinking when you were talking about the birthday party she had, she loved her birthday, right?
Loved.
And I share that.
You are one of those people, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. I love my birthday. It went from birthday to birth week to birthday
You were the
month.
birthday month. Oh yeah, yeah. She was trending towards. She would have
Yeah,
been that.
she was trending, right? So I feel this kindred spirit with her there. Like, hey, I see you. And I think of her for at least the latter half of December, right? Because there's this joyous birthday, and then there's the day that she passed so close together. And I
Yeah.
imagine, especially with the holidays right there, that's just wrecking emotionally for you, like so much right there,
Yeah.
packed into a short period of time. I'm always thinking of her during that time and the joy of the birthday and the celebrating. And then, oh, how old would she be right now? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just the recognition of what people leave behind, right? The impact
Mm-hmm.
um, of all the relationships and all maybe the hopes or the dreams or the other things.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was a psychology student essentially at UCLA, right?
Yeah.
In interpersonal communication studies. And, we had studied Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of grief.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just being like, F all these pamphlets that are like so organized and,
Right. So
quote
linear.
unquote left brain, so linear. Like, first, there's this. And I do think there's something that shifts between the first few days or weeks and the first few months or the first year.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just, I mean, I described it like if my life before this were a puzzle and I were piecing it together, someone just took the puzzle pieces, soaked them up in like a smoothie, threw them
Mm-hmm.
in the blender, and then poured it out on the table. And I got to make something out of it.
Yeah.
Like, there
It's a good
wasn't
one.
like, oh, I'm so sad. I mean, of course I was sad. Oh, I'm angry. Of course I was. But like, it didn't, for me, it didn't come through like shock, denial, anger,
Yeah.
acceptance. It was just a big mix. I think that in and of itself was challenging, right? Like I had never been through something like that before. So it was just like, how do I even, I think that's why yoga is so good for me. It was just like breathe and notice
Mm-hmm.
whatever, notice whatever, however it is.
Yeah.
You don't even have to label it. So what was it like initially, and how would you describe it emotionally a few years on?
Same as you. There were no stages of grief. No one tried to hand me a pamphlet, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But there was certainly a period of shock, even though your brain knew what had happened.
Yeah.
You couldn't even really understand it.
Yeah.
I think that swirl of, I never felt angry, but just confused and sadness that first year, I think for most is just kind of unrelenting.
Yeah.
And you don't know when or where you're going to feel crushed down by whatever emotion. I found that very unstable feeling in that first year.
Yeah.
Since then, the waves are smaller. Usually they're predictable, obvious days like the anniversary, and there's a bittersweet to her birthday or family occasions where that person should be there. There's still moments that suddenly trip me up. Now I know you just have to sit in it and it will pass and you'll put yourself back together again.
Like waves, really, I relate to that a lot. And I remember just the weight of the first year, almost it feeling constant at first, and then having little moments of maybe relief,
Mm-hmm.
and then the little moments getting longer. And then it's starting to feel more like, oh, there's these chunks of grief coming through. And the rest of there's something else that I'm standing on, and those waves are coming through rather than just being tossed around in the current.
Mm-hmm.
As you go, it's like, oh, okay, now this is a wave and this is a wave. And then further on, getting to the sense of really knowing, almost expecting it and
Mm-hmm.
being able to ride it. For the longest time, right around the anniversary of his death, which was in July, like a day or two before, I would just be like so off
Yeah.
emotionally. And I would maybe have planned to take the anniversary day off. I might have planned to go for a walk or, do something that made me feel a little bit more connected to him, or was an, dedication or an offering. But it would usually be a few days before, and I'd be like, what is happening? It always shocked me how much your body knows these things at such a deep level, and your psyche is just so attuned. Even if waking conscious wise, you're like, do, 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 I'm just doing this today.
Right.
Did you experience that too? Those moments where you like don't know, you didn't see it coming, and it just kind of waves over you still?
I still do. And it's that build up, right? You were saying like it's the few days before, the week before,
Yeah.
that's the worst part.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me because the worst already happened. So that initially it felt like maybe she died again on that day, but there's still some sort of anxiety approaching, especially that day. And even a month before, my sleep starts getting really funky.
Yeah.
I can't control it. I just wait for it to be done.
These things are big. And as much as you love someone is as much as it feels painful when they're gone. And so for anyone listening who's going through this, you're not alone. When it's messy
Yeah.
and it can be really gnarly emotionally in a way that I don't think we can really capture in words. But I do think it helps to know that there are other people out here, and it's not something wrong with you to grieve in this way. In fact, it's like really normal and helpful to be able to connect with it and process it in the way that works best for you.
Absolutely. I think sharing and being open and being reminded, even though everyone's story is unique, obviously, because the relationship is unique, I have found it so helpful to be, I don't know how else I can be other than open, but it's helpful.
Yeah. And you said that even when I asked you, do you want to talk about this on the podcast? You're like, it seems to be helpful just to
Yeah,
be open and share. And I think there's connection on the other side of that too, right? Like,
absolutely.
yeah. So we talked a little bit about this. How have your thoughts or beliefs changed since December of 2019? Like what has shifted in you
Mhm.
and the way you think, feel, and the way you are in the world?
I don't know if my husband and kids would say the same, but I think I've let go of a lot. I'm one of those who I like control. I like managing and having my ducks in a row. And we all know that you can't always have your ducks in a row, but this pulled everything out from underneath me. I couldn't control it. And I think it has softened. I still like to control things and I still like ducks in a row, but I think I've let go of a lot of the deeper need for control. I think I'm more open to other people and just enjoying being present. And that's probably my biggest shift, being more present, more picky about where I choose to be present, maybe, but
Mm-hmm.
really being present for my boys has been a big one.
And that perspective with loss is really powerful of like none of this is guaranteed. And for me, that it helps with just being present with life.
It does. And there's still obviously all those moments that are so frustrating and irritating, but I now catch myself maybe remembering that this will pass. And like you said, nothing is promised. It is a good, broader perspective than I had before.
And you also mentioned being more intentional about where you're present, right? Like, where
Yeah.
is your attention? And is this really that important? Do I need to be renting out mental space in my brain for this little hiccup about work or this
Yeah,
technology frustration or whatever else is happening? So it can kind of recenter you that way too.
absolutely.
And in terms of spirituality, where do you land with that? Is it still a challenge?
It's still a challenge. I'm not religious. And even if I were, I joined a grief group for a couple years because of COVID, but there was one couple in there and they were very religious. And this shattered that for them because they're like,
Yeah.
we kind of know where she is, but how could this happen? And so I don't know that that would give me an obvious bit of assurance that she's somewhere, but I believe she's somewhere. I don't believe that you just disappear, but I don't know where she is.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to find her, not yet.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
And there are these little moments, like I think you messaged me when you were in Kauai and there was a rainbow and a hummingbird or something like these moments that you
Good
just
memory, yeah.
feel.
And it
And
sounds so hokey, but I felt it.
yeah. And
And
that's the
maybe,
part that I
yeah.
feel is important to trust. Like,
Yeah, you actually told me that. I think it was about a bush. This was years ago
yes.
that lit up for you.
Yes.
And you were using that as an example to coach me. Like, no one's going to tell you otherwise. Like, no one can
Yeah.
tell you that, oh, that was or was not met. And that helps me to remember to open myself up in those moments that maybe it can be her.
Yes. Oh, I love that you remember the bush too.
I remember the bush.
I remember the bush. And this was 20 years ago, solid more.
Oh, wow.
I was driving on Montana from Brentwood towards Santa Monica, going to yoga, as we
Yes.
do.
Yes.
And there's a curve in the road, and I think it's a golf course that you're curving along the edge of.
Yeah, there is.
And right in front of you, I don't know if it's still there was a bush and there were some flowers on it. They were pink and blooming. And for whatever reason, they were like vibrant, alive. Not so much, I mean, visually, but there was just a aura or a feeling. And I just felt
Yeah.
like that's my brother. Like it's confusing to say because like
Yeah.
he's not here in body, but I felt such a vibe from it. And I had this moment of like, okay, like I don't get that, but sure, come
So you
show me
accepted
this
it right
beautiful
away.
bush or be the thing that I'm driving towards that I'll turn and drive around, but just anything. Like you're going to be here with me, great. And the thing I love about some of those moments is that I wasn't looking for it in the moment. Because sometimes people are like, oh, you poor, sad, grieving person, you're just making stuff up because you're so attached. Maybe that's just some internalized criticism, but I feel like sometimes people kind of come from that really logical place where they're like, oh, you don't know. Like, oh, I don't know, but I'm choosing to trust that this
Yeah.
means something and I can't explain it. Some of them are a little more stark, or you share the story of like a hummingbird and a rainbow, and people are like, oh, they get that. Those are common symbols, right?
Right.
I had a hawk that followed me. I was moving from Seattle, which is where I lived when he passed, back down to California. I was driving down the Oregon coast, and I swear, like from Portland out to the coast and down, there was this bird, and I had the old Acura Integra with this, the
I
moon.
remember that car.
You remember that car?
I do.
You've been in that car. And this bird was following my car for miles, like from
Wow.
Portland, somewhere between Portland and the coast, and then south.
Mhm.
Miles, like hours. Like I would look up, oh, it's still there. Oh, it's still there. And I was just like, how do I explain this? This is the most
Yeah.
random thing. Someone might be like, there was some piece of prey stuck to the top of your car and it was chasing it or whatever, but it just felt like a sign. It just felt like something. It just felt like a visit. For me, it was really important to not get stuck in my head about it and just be like,
Yeah.
okay, hi. And then to even speak out loud, whatever I might want to say at the moment. Hey, Matt, I'm moving from Seattle back down. I have a
Mhm.
couple more classes to take at UCLA. I miss you, whatever.
Yeah.
To speak it out loud sometimes helped too. Do you ever have a chance to do that, to like speak out loud or write? Does that happen for you?
I do actually. I've not been writing so much this year. We're in a temporary rental while we redo our house. And I used to only write to her in Carolina's room. I would go sit there with my journal and write to her. I don't have a space for her right now, so I have not been writing as much, but I'll talk to her. Somehow I can do that. So I must, in those moments at least, hope enough that she can hear me.
And what would you say to her right now if she were on our call?
Oh, I would start crying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would just tell her I miss her. I think that's all I could get out so far.
I think one of the hardest things is like, that's it. That's the beginning, middle, end of like that manifestation of this spirit, this person.
Yeah, it's hard not to think about all the things they don't get to do.
Yeah.
And Matt doesn't get to meet Isabella.
I know. Oh, that
Carolina
gets
doesn't get
me.
to grow up. We don't
Yeah.
get to figure out what would she do? What would she be like? I think those are the harder thoughts.
100%.
Yeah.
There might be parents who are a week out, a month out, a year out, or 20 years out listening to this.
Yeah.
What would you say to other parents who've lost a child?
I know for me, I not that I didn't want to hear anything, but I couldn't take in, it will the grief will morph, it will be different, it will be easier. I didn't want to hear that. And I
Yeah.
didn't want to sit in my grief forever. Like you said, at 1 year, you realize I don't want my life to be dominated by losing Matt.
Yeah.
I knew I didn't want that. I don't want my life defined by this loss. It's now a part of my story, but it's not going to run my life. But I think I thought if I take in that the grief will change, it will morph, it'll be farther away from the days when Carolina was here. I didn't want that, even though I didn't want to exist in that relentless wave. Someone said once something to the effect of, if you look at it not in a morbid way, but now you're living and getting closer to the day when you'll be with her again, whatever that means,
Yeah.
was a better spin on it for me.
Yeah.
The only thing I could tell someone that I would have been able to take in was that you will feel joy again.
Yeah.
And not that I wasn't happy in moments, but like actual joy. And I remember when I felt it for the first time because it caught me and I kind of stopped for a minute and it was the silliest reason, you'll laugh,
Yeah.
but I felt it and I knew it was pure and it was proof to me like this will it won't be okay, but it will be okay.
What was it, the moment?
It must have been just over a year after Carolina died. So maybe it was spring of 21. And UCLA basketball was, I don't know if they were in March Madness or approaching it, but they had a game and we had it on. I mean, it was COVID, everyone was home anyway. And it was exciting. And, we used to go, like, we would camp out for those games. So it was something that I knew I used to enjoy. And
Yeah.
I got so caught up into the game and kind of like yelled and clapped whatever good thing had happened. And that was the moment I immediately stopped because it felt so foreign.
Yeah.
But it felt foreign in a good way. Like, oh yeah, I will feel this again.
Yeah.
But it was very strange and silly.
Yeah, it like really drew you in, and there's so many associations with that from the past, and then all of a sudden,
Totally.
like, where's that coming from?
Yeah. And that
Oh,
was nice to feel.
I love that it was a
Yeah.
basketball game.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if you ever met my friend from growing up. She's my best friend like my whole life, Katrina. We call each other Weenie.
Yeah.
She caught one time we were on the phone, it was maybe a year-ish out, and I don't know what it was, but I laughed and she went, "Oh, Weenie, you laughed. I haven't heard you laugh in so long." And I was like,
Wow.
"Oh, right." Like, wow.
Wow.
Like I didn't notice it so much, but she did. And then when she reflected that, I was like, yeah, it's been rough. right? Like
Yeah.
you haven't heard me laugh in a year.
Yeah,
But it does come back,
it
right?
does come back.
Yeah.
It does come back if you allow it to, and I want it to. Yeah.
And I can just imagine Carolina like right by your side, like, go, go, go. She probably watched some UCLA basketball with you.
I may have dragged her to Vegas a couple times for March Madness.
Yes, you did. I love that.
The two of us went. She didn't really care, but I made her go.
She's like, yay, trip with mama. Sounds
We had
great.
fun, right? Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's amazing. You mentioned earlier a grief group. Would you recommend that to folks? I know it's so individual, but are there any resources or places or websites or things that helped you navigate through?
I joined the grief group. Jabron came with me the first time, and he's like, "This is not for me." That was okay. We grieved on our own path. We didn't try to do it together.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I liked it. I don't know if you like grief groups, but I don't know if I felt anything from it initially. But I knew I had work to do, and I didn't know what it looked like. And
Yeah.
so I threw myself into, I'm going to do this grief group on my own. I wanted to do family grief therapy for the boys. COVID hit just a few months later. So our
Right.
options were limited. To have kids sit on a couch and stare at a computer screen and try to do art therapy doesn't work well. But I felt we all needed to do some sort of work, at least the first year.
Yeah.
And Jabron and I did grief therapy on our own. So it was a lot, but I just felt like I just need to see what sticks.
Yeah.
I don't regret any of it. It was easy to do all that. Not easy, but it was COVID. We weren't going anywhere. So to
Yeah.
have a few meetings a week online was fine. It was something to
Yeah.
do.
I think it's important, like you said, it's not like you're gonna like it necessarily, but just
Yeah.
finding what sticks.
Yeah. And my grief group ended up, but you just can't take in someone else's loss when you're so raw yourself. And so it took a while for me to actually feel like I could incorporate their stories and connect with them.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did it for me, just to be reminded that you're not alone, even though your loss is unique.
Hmm.
It's not just you.
Yeah.
I think it's important to try something,
Yeah.
just to dig myself into a hole and throw a blanket over my head. Like I wanted to live. I wanted to be present for myself, for my kids.
Yeah. So it was a conscious choice.
It was a conscious choice. I knew I
Yeah.
couldn't do nothing.
Did you ever try yoga?
No.
Next time in LA, we're gonna go to a class.
Okay. I've tried a couple times and I'm probably pretty terrible at it, but I would be open to trying.
Yeah. That was like the thing that stuck for me. Before that, I was doing so many things outdoors, all this stuff. And
Yeah.
outdoors is something that's really healing for me now. But at the time, I was just like, yoga, this is it. Like it's doing something.
Yeah.
I can't explain it, but that led to this whole career trajectory of like trying to figure it out. Like, why was
Yeah.
that the thing for me? And why is that the thing for some people?
Mhm.
Like, I do think that it's individual for everyone.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, it was interesting to me how powerful yoga was. And then it was really interesting to learn all these reasons why later. Like, then I got to geek out on it. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh my goodness, like there's an alpha theta response when you close your eyes. And you lean back and you cover your eyes. Wow, how interesting. Just to speak to her and keep her here with us, what are some of your most treasured memories with Carolina?
Probably those Vegas trips were a couple that stand out to me. It was just fun. It was just time us.
Yeah.
She could do anything and we'd go. I didn't have to say no to anything. It was just her time
Yeah.
with me, and I enjoyed doing that with her, and I
Yeah.
think she enjoyed it with me. Planning her birthday parties was miserable at the time, but always ended up fun. She always had to do something completely different, and I miss that. I think around her birthday, just listening to months of planning and ideas, but I still have those journals and pages that she wrote, so it's nice to look back on those. I could have sent her notes over to you if she were here, and
Oh, totally. I would have been the most excited little auntie on the side, being like, okay, and then we can add this. Why don't we add sparklers? Are there any fireworks yet? And how will you continue to honor Carolina?
just for me, even little things. The last years I've bought, Carolyn was in Girl Scouts, and so I buy a ton of boxes from her troop. One of her closest girlfriends is still in it, and we give them to the educators and staff at school that have been so amazing to us these past years, and all of Carolina's old teachers. So that helps each year, and it helps me be reminded once again that she's remembered, and not on the daily by most people, but the minute they get it, their faces light up, and I have a sticker that I put on it. So that was fun. My dad has a nonprofit in Sri Lanka, and they each year do a donation to needy children with a picture of Carolina on it. All these small things put together, and then being in touch with her friends is my heart healer.
Yes.
They are amazing girls. They keep me involved in their life, and it helps me feel like Carolina still could be here. If I watch them, I don't know what she would be like, but I know I can have a good guess based on how they are.
And they're still feeling really connected to her too, right?
They are. They've gone their separate ways. They're in high school now, but
Yeah.
they come together. We had dinner the other night, and I take them out for Carolina's birthday for lunch, and they come together and they have this bond of this experience and this friend, and it's really sweet. I hope that for all the years to come that they can always circle back if given the opportunity.
Didn't you have a square dedicated to her name?
Yes. One of her girlfriend's dad filed a petition to have the square, it's the intersection outside of our elementary school, named the Carolina Madrid Diab Square. He didn't tell us because he didn't know if it'd be approved. When it was, he told them to hold and ask our permission. And it's, she's not buried, she's cremated. So we don't have a place to go visit her.
Yeah.
Or we wouldn't have had. And this square on all four corners, there's a sign with her name, and it's big. And we decorate it every year on the 24th on her birthday. And her friends show up, and some people in the community now show up, and we've got donuts and coffee, and it is a place. I can bring her flowers there.
Yeah, that's so nice.
And I do often, yeah.
What a thoughtful gesture.
It was amazing. I didn't realize the importance of having a place to go visit her, and now I do.
I haven't been there, so yeah, we're on our way to yoga. After yoga, we'll go sit there.
Or after.
I think after, then we have more time. We can sit, bring flowers.
Is Matt buried or cremated?
He's cremated, and we never spreaded. I think early on we were trying to coordinate and trying to choose like the perfect spot.
Right.
And we all had a little bit different ideas. I was like, how about the top of this mountain we climbed together? And then my parents thought, well, what about this field where we picnicked? It didn't feel like we disagreed. It just felt like we didn't land on something that was like, yeah, that sounds great. Do you still have the ashes, or did you spread them?
We didn't spread them. We have them. It was, she was 11. So it wasn't like she loved sailing, or, that she would belong in the ocean, or like she belongs here with us. And so it was never a talk to put her anywhere or spread her ashes or bury her. So we commissioned a Japanese artist to create a piece of glass for her that looks like a whimsical cookie jar in a way.
Yeah.
And it's made of her favorite colors that she had at the time. And, the cookie is kind of a nod to her sweet tooth.
Yep.
And so it's a piece of glass that if you didn't know, you wouldn't think of it as an urn, but it's so pretty to us.
That's beautiful. I love
but
that.
I don't feel a connection to the ashes.
Yeah, right. It's interesting how we feel connections to different things or places, sometimes more. Yeah. Given everything you've been through in the last 5 years and in life, it would be easy for someone to be like, oh, it's really hard to find hope. But like you said, you made a conscious choice to live. I'm wondering what brings you hope in life.
Probably my boys. Like I've said this before to others, but I want them to have just as magical a life.
Yeah.
Someone said it to me after Carolina died. Like, looks like she had a pretty magical life, just looking through her pictures and hearing people's stories at her funeral. And it stuck with me. And it was like, she did. She had a wonderful life. And so I want that so much for them. And I don't want my life. I'm not one of those parents that I'm only involved in them. I need my own things and my own happiness and my own passions. But I do feel passionate about making sure they also know that they will have a wonderful life, or they can have a wonderful life, and that they can choose that.
Yeah.
And they are. So that gives me hope, knowing that hopefully they are, whether they're modeling. my husband and myself, or if they're just feeling that and knowing that they too will feel joy and happiness again. And they are, and they have, makes me happy.
Yeah, definitely. And it happens often that folks come on this podcast and people want to reach out to them. Are you on social media, or is there anywhere you'd want people to connect with you?
I'm terrible with social media, other than I do have Facebook, but I only became active because of Carolina's page. It does cause me to check, because I do get messages sometimes from people who, friends of a friend or some degree of separation, and I will probably never meet them, but they might suddenly send me a message. So I do make a point of checking, and I always respond because it is thoughtful. And Carolina, crossing someone else's life that she wouldn't have normally, and someone told me about it, I think is really cool.
Have you had the experience of getting a picture that you hadn't seen before in the last
few years? It still happens. Her page has tons, and people will send me, but they still pop up, suddenly your phone wants to show you a picture and it doesn't even line up to the day, but someone will send it, or I'll see it and forgot that I ever had it. And I really enjoy that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cheers to your daughter, Carolina Madrid Diab.
Thank you.
Yeah, and her magical life.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing some of the up, the down, the around, the swirl of it. I know you're not alone. I know no one's alone in this, even though it is our own path to figure out and walk. Hopefully that connection, and I know you shared after the funeral too, that love that shows up is enough to keep us open enough to move forward and keep showing up for the other magical lives that we're a part of.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, thank you from the beginning. I wish this wasn't the reason we reconnected as much as we have, but you've guided me so much and really buoyed me so many times.
Oh, I'm happy to continue to.
Yes, please.
You got my number.
I do.
And I'm awake at 3 a.m. these days. So anytime, any day.
You got it.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you so much, Lisa. This was amazing.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to go to howwecanheal.com to sign up for email updates. You'll also find additional trainings, tons of helpful resources, and the full transcript of each show. If you love the show, please leave us a review on Apple, Spotify, Audible, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe, and keep sharing the shows you love the most with all your friends. Visit howwecanheal.com/podcast to share your thoughts and ideas for the show. I love hearing from you. Before we wrap up for today, I want to be clear that this podcast isn't offering prescriptions, it's not advice, nor is it any kind of mental health treatment or diagnosis. Your decisions are in your hands, and I encourage you to consult with any healthcare professionals you may need to support you through your unique path of healing. In addition, everyone's opinion here is their own. Guests share their thoughts, not that of the host or sponsors. I'd like to thank our guests today, everyone who helps support this podcast directly and indirectly. Alex, shout out to you for taking care of the babe and the fur babies while I record. Last but never least, I'd like to give a shout out to my big brother, Matt, who passed away in 2002. He wrote this music, and it makes my heart so happy to share it with you.